Back to real business though, the housing and homelessness crisis is continuing apace. There are 6,000 adults and more than 3,500 children in emergency accommodation, and that's a figure that is not changing. The cost of rent in particular has never been as high, despite the introduction of rent pressure zones. And we all know the problems and challenges that this is causing to people on a daily basis. It is having a particular impact on the provision of student accommodation. And today, you in government have published a report outlining what you call progress in providing student accommodation. You say that there are 18,600 or so bed spaces in various forms of planning, and that by the end of this year, about 5,500 of those will be completed. Minister Mitchell O'Connor described those as a healthy pipeline of student projects in train. Once again, government patting itself on the back, willfully ignorant of the reality on the ground. Because the reality on the ground is that much of this accommodation is being built privately, much of this accommodation is being rented out at exorbitant rental views. And many people are having to make a choice between cancelling their place in college, turning it down or leaving college because they cannot afford accommodation. Fianna, the President of USI, said today that international students are being targeted by colleges and they see those international students, to use her phrase, as cash cows. And in return for rents for students who come from middle or modest class backgrounds are absolutely exorbitant and out of reach. €1,000 and €1,400 a month is the average going rate for student accommodation in Donington. Families cannot afford that. You couldn't afford that if you were working, never mind as a student. And in the north side of the city, students are being faced with a 30% increase in rental costs for next year. We're all aware of the case of Shannon and Santry, where students are going to be hit by a 50% increase and a 30% increase, following on a 30% increase from last year. The same is happening in Cushna-Curraba and NUIG and right across the country. Taoiseach, you can act, and the government can actually take measures now, measures that don't need it all to be sitting. And we have provided, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin have provided a bill and a pathway for you to take those measures and actually reduce the accommodation and rental burden on students and their families. Why can you not introduce the amendments to the rent pressure zones? Why can you not ensure that student accommodation, such as Shannon, such as Cushna-Curraba, are deemed as under licence, so the tenants within them are treated in the same way as regular tenants and leases? And what is your plan to deal with the crisis facing student renters in this country?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thank you, Tony. So here we are again, loads of targets, loads of promises, and you are the king of this. In housing, you promised that there wouldn't be any emergency accommodation. I think this time last year, it's still happening. And this is the same as going to happen for student housing. You're promising everything, but in September and in October, students and their families will be faced with a bill every month of €1,400–1,500. The residential tenancies bill was promised in this session. You haven't moved it on. And you can give all the words you want, you can give all the promises you want, you can lay out all the action plans you want and issue all the self-congratulatory reports, but come September, come October, what are you going to say to students and their parents and their families who are faced with paying €1,400 every single month for student accommodation? No sense in telling people who are going to turn down a place, turn down the opportunity of education, don't worry, there will be an apartment for you next year. Next year may not come in time. There are actions now, Taoiseach, that you can take to recognise the urgency of this situation and to actually say to those providing student accommodation that students are not cash cows. The places you mention are being provided by private operators at exorbitant profitable rates, making profits on the back of Irish students, while you stand by and talk about it.